It's time for a Humans in Tune conversation with Darren on 93.9 Mike FM.
Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to another Humans in Tune on 93.9 Mike FM. It's Darren Bergfeld with you, sitting in the studio and unfortunately unable to be in the studio today thanks to the aggressive acts of Mother Nature outside. Today, I'm proud to have Leslie Washington with me. Leslie, how you doing today? It's good to have you.
I'm doing great, Darren. Thanks again for having me. I know I like to be in the studio live, but thanks to Mother Nature, I cannot. So
that's right. Well, at least thanks to technology, we can still connect here and have a good conversation today, and that's what we're here to do. And we've got a lot of things to cover today. I want to talk with you first, kind of introduce you a little bit. Leslie and I met in the hallway out here, but I'd seen your name around town here and there beforehand. But Leslie, you're a part of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America here in Cape Girardeau locally, but it's a national organization. And a lot of people know you that way. Some people know you as a survivor of gun violence and domestic violence. Some people know you through church. A lot of people know you in different directions. So I want to kind of give people the picture of Leslie Washington as you want to present today. So let's tell us a little bit about your experience.
Well, like Darren said, my name is Leslie Washington, and I've been in Cape Girardeau roughly now for 11 years. And so I've kind of acclimated myself, like Darren has said, in the community and being vocal and different things that, you know, are my passion, domestic violence and firearm violence, as well as, you know, Roe v. Wade and its overturning and things of that nature. So I just use my voice to advocate for those that have been impacted by these different things that we have going on, these different, I guess you would say, pandemics and health crises and things of that nature. So with the domestic violence, you know, I was with my ex for a period of like 9+ years. And he was very mean, very bitter, very evil, a very vile human being. And so he fractured the orbit in my left eye. So after finally deciding to leave him, you know, and coming here to Cape Girardeau to be safe and to go into the safe house, and they helped me, you know, with my ex parte and divorce and things of that nature, and remaining safe. And then he decided that he wanted to put a firearm with a fully loaded clip on his Instagram page for everyone to see. And so that sent that message that he was going to kill me. So I took that very literal. And so I had to make sure that I was safe. He would also threaten my mom and say that he was going to come here and kill me. And then I had a cousin that died by gun suicide. He was 19. He left a note. He had planned to do this. So when he finally carried out that act, it was devastating to my family. And then I had another cousin, since I've been in Cape, that was murdered in 2015 in St. Louis, Missouri. And his murder today still remains unsolved. We still don't know why he was murdered, if he was targeted or whatever the case may be. So we don't have closure for that, you know, for the loss of my cousin. I mean, I grew up with my cousin. I had fun with my cousin. And so not being able to talk to my cousin and say, Keith, I love you. You know, he left children behind. So, you know, they do well. They, proceed to move on. His mom moves, you know, but we still don't have closure. And so, like I tell people, I said, when there's senseless gun violence or even domestic violence, those things leave indelible impacts on not only the family and the friends of that victim, but also the community as a whole. So it's important that we support survivors of gun violence, trauma, and domestic violence, because as we know, it wreaks havoc on our mental. Our mental state is messed up. so you're depressed, you're sad, you go through mood swings, you're angry, you're pissed off,
Mhm.
you want to just do it, whatever you can to push through it. And it's hard. And I never tell people they should get over their situation. I just encourage them and, try to be there for them and support them as much as possible.
Right.
And so this week, starting tomorrow, February the 1st to the 7th, 2023, is our 5th annual Survivors Week, National Gun Violence Survivors Week.
Mhm.
And so we take that time to amplify the voices of survivors. And you can use all of your social media platforms, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Snapchat, the TikTok, use
Yeah.
some PSAs and just talk about, survivors. Like we have a website called momentsthatsurvive.org.
Okay.
And so you can go on that site and there's all the survivors. Like you
I
can
was looking
type
at
in
that site last night. Yeah. That's
yeah. So my
it's
story
impactful.
is on there. And so you can, type in Missouri and you can see all the ones from Missouri, or you can type in
Mhm.
New York and you can see all the ones from New York. And if, someone sticks out to you, feel, amplify their voice.
Right. And I think
Go ahead.
well, that's something you said in our email was amplifying survivors' voices. And if you think about it, your story, your one story, and how many other people in our area, just in our town, just in your neighborhood have a
Right.
similar story, have been impacted by this in one way. A lot of us have. And
Right.
for so many, it's a similar thing to mental health stigma where you keep quiet, or you meet in a small church group and you pray about those things, you talk about those things. But outside of that, you're not raising your voice against it. So many aren't raising their voice against it.
No, and so many people are so afraid to use their voice because they're
Right.
afraid of being judged if they talk about it, and even as a Black woman and a survivor of domestic violence, for a while my self-esteem was down to nothing
Oh, I can imagine.
because
Yeah.
so that's what abusers do.
Mhm.
And so I had to get out of that funk and I had to start telling my story. I
Mhm.
had to start, moving forward, dressing up, putting clothes on, fixing my hair, getting my
Time out.
nails
I want to
done.
give you a shout out too, because every picture I see of you, you have got the most colorful, beautiful wardrobe. It's awesome. I
Thank-
love it. I love your
thank
expression.
Thank you. And so it took me a while to get back to that.
Yeah.
But then I had to realize, I said, if I continue to diminish myself and continue to let him control me,
Right.
because there's another thing with domestic violence, there's that digital stalking. So that's when they use the social media platforms to reach out to you and send you nasty messages and mean messages.
Mhm.
And so that would be a trigger anytime I would get something from my ex. And then I had to say, well, if I continue to let him scare me, then that means he's still in my head. And I
Yeah.
can't let him be in my head to where I can't do anything to push forward and make myself look good.
Right.
So I had to get out of that mind state. And so that's when I decided to get involved and
Yeah.
be active and not lay dormant and let him consume me and overpower me.
Yeah.
Because if you let them overpower you, then you're never going to win. You're never going to have anything. You're never going to
Yeah.
do anything.
Well, they
never gonna-
force you
you
into
just-
a subservient lifestyle, and that's what you're,
Right.
and yeah, it's, you being a voice that shows overcoming that and becoming the outward person you were meant to be and were before you got into that situation.
Right.
It
And
goes
and
without saying that
always-
other women can see your story, hear your story, read your
Right.
story, and
Right.
then
And
maybe
that's why-
feel empowered to go to the Safe House for Women or a
Yeah,
similar
and-
organization.
Right. And that's why I share my story, because if there is one person that is in our audience today, even today, or even reading my article in the Southeast Missourian or anything like that, then I know that my assignment has been done and I have reached at least one person.
Yeah.
And then having been through that, it's afforded me opportunities to do research and learn more about domestic violence.
Right.
And we also know that if there is a firearm involved in domestic violence, it's 5 times more likely for that woman to die. 5 times, not 1 time, not 2 times, but 5 times.
Right.
And that's sad. And, and just being a part of Moms Demand Action in Everytown for gun safety has afforded me the opportunities to talk to legislators and share my stories and things like that of what I've been through, to know that you have a constituent that has gone through domestic violence and firearm violence and will continue to advocate to make sure that you do what you need to do so we can be safe.
Yep.
Because we know we have too many things that happen in our own backyard of Cape Girardeau that go unsaid, unheard, and any of that. And it's just unfortunate.
Well, and the more voices that join you, the louder the cry is, and the more attention you get. And that's just physics. That's just how that works, but it's the absolute truth. And that's why groups like Moms Demand Action are so great to create. It's a grassroots level for you and for everybody you're working with in that, trying to bring other members into the fold, other people who have survived gun violence. I thought it was cool. Back, what was it? A few weeks ago, the city council did a proclamation.
It was on the 23rd.
Okay. And they, what was it? It was just Gun Violence Awareness Day. That's in May, right? The day? Okay.
No, the day is for February 1st to February 7th of this. So starting
for
tomorrow.
Survivors Week, right?
For Survivors Week. And they gave us a proclamation. Mayor Kinder gave us a proclamation for marking for the 5th annual Gun Violence Awareness Week.
Okay. That clears it up. I was trying to figure out what it was saying there. And then I came across an article from the National Day. I guess it was last year that you had a conversation with. So, and awareness days and all that, those are great, but there's so many of those that what has to happen is, like you said, people have to advocate and people have to use their voice and speak up. Yeah. And, you've done that. We're having this conversation. I know you've had conversations with other, media in the area to tell your story. And congratulations too. I know you got one of the awards, the Ritter Humanitarian Awards at the Martin Luther King event earlier this month. Yes. And that's a cool deal. Dr. Ritter was a pretty amazing guy, so that's a pretty cool spot to take one of those.
I wasn't even expecting that, so
that's cool.
She took me off guard. She kind of caught me off guard with that. I was like, okay.
Oh, yeah. No, I think it's great. Well, and it's a testament to the work that you're doing. I know you said you got involved with them with Moms Demand Action in 2016. So, it's been 7 years of work so far, and there's a lot of work to do. If somebody's catching this on the podcast or somebody's watching this on Facebook later on and they're tuning in and they think, okay, well, how can I get involved? I'm here in Cape. How can I talk to you? How do I get involved?
Well, we have monthly meetings. We have our monthly meeting next Thursday evening at the Cape Girardeau Public Library. And it's at 6:30 in the evening. Like I said, it's the Cape Girardeau Public Library. Mm-hmm. So then also you can go on Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America.org, as well as everytownforgunsafety.org. And then also, if you want to look up the statistics and things like that, we have a site called everystat.org, and you can type in Missouri and it will tell you everything listed, for homicides, suicides, and all of that. It'll tell you all that information you need. So you can type in a specific state and it will give you the graphics and things like that for that particular state, and the numbers and stuff like that. And then also I want to say to Darren, as we know that majority of gun violence, it affects BIPOC communities, Black and brown communities on a daily basis,
Yeah.
every single day. And even, with the gun violence that's happening across the country, Jerusalem, California, all those different places. And I tell people all the time, I said, I'm not oblivious to gun violence at all by any means necessary. Right. And I know that it happens. And I know that we have to do better. We have to make people accountable for their actions. I feel like if you commit a heinous crime, like against a child or whatever, any kind of crime, like, Tyree Nichols, he gone for no reason by police brutality. Like, for, what reason was, why? So
it's evil. It's just evil.
It's evil. And so that type of violence, it happens all too often. And I tell people, I said, it doesn't just happen in New York, Chicago, St. Louis. It happens in Memphis. It happens here in Cape Girardeau.
Yeah, it happens in Carbondale. It happens in Paducah, Kentucky, in little towns.
Exactly. It happens all over the country. And I pray for these families that have lost members to gun violence. I get it, but I can't do anything because I don't live there. I live here in Cape Girardeau.
Right.
So
you have to take action where your roots are planted.
Where my roots are planted, and I have to do what I have to do. Like just recently, I live across from the post office. There was gun violence a block away from me.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here waiting for my friend to come over. I had just taken my trash out and come back in the house, check my mail, come back in the house. All of a sudden, I see this vehicle fly past me. Okay, what the hell? And so then immediately after that, I hear gunshots, like 5 or 6. Like that's right outside my door.
Yep.
So then after I hear the gunshots, he comes flying back and he turns on Bellevue. Like, what are you going to do? Commit more crimes?
Yeah.
So I immediately called the police and I let them know this just happened. And they investigated. They didn't talk to me because I was leaving or whatever, but they did come and investigate, but when it happens that close to you.
Oh yeah. I live up on Middle. I'm 3-4 blocks from you. So I get it, absolutely. And, they're making efforts. I think I can't remember what it's called now, so pardon my ignorance, but the new shooting system deal that can ShotSpotter. Thank you. They're making some efforts with some stuff like that. That's showing to be successful, but it's always a drop in the bucket, but it's still got to keep making those drops, We have
to go, we have to be vigilant. We have to go to city council. We have to talk about it. We have to have these conversations. Like,
it can't become acceptable.
No, it can't be the norm. And I get that it is the norm because it happens every day.
Well, we joke about, 4th of July comes around. What's the joke that we play when you live downtown? Is it gunshots or fireworks, And we joke about it on social media, but that's legit. That if it's gunfire, gunfire is gunfire, man. You're in town, it's common sense. You hope common sense prevails, but I think it's been out the window for a while.
Yeah, and those things trigger people. When people hear gun violence, and if they've been impacted by gun violence, and those little things like that trigger you.
Oh, and
so then you back into your shell again because you've heard these gunshots or you've heard these celebratory fireworks, and then you're back in a little bubble all over again because you don't know if they're going to come through your window, your bedroom window, or your front window.
Yeah.
So, and then even going, on campus, it's an open campus. So I have to be careful when I go to school.
Yeah.
I have to be careful when I go to school. And I'm working on getting a students demand action set up on campus because they don't have that on campus. And like, I've had conversations and I've just, things have occurred and people don't know how to talk to someone who has been impacted by gun violence or domestic violence.
How do you start the question, right?
Yeah,
How do
how
you
do you
start the
start? How
conversation?
do you talk? How do you start the conversation? There's words that we use, there's words that we say, there's things that you talk about, and you
Hmm.
have to be open to having these conversations, because if you don't have these harsh conversations, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything.
Right.
I'm going to be real. I'm going to be down and dirty with you. And if you don't like it, so be it,
Right.
because we got to have these conversations. It may not be something you want to hear, but we got to have these conversations.
Yeah.
We got to talk about it, because
It
we
starts with the
have,
education side, you know?
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's what I do. I try to educate you. I try to have these conversations. I try to talk to people. I'm trying to do more on campus, because
Hmm.
there's things that happen to students that we don't even know about. There's trauma that they go through. There's people that are raped. And it doesn't, domestic violence, let me be clear, it doesn't just happen to women, it happens to men and children
Sure.
as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we have to be aware of that. It
Hmm.
doesn't just happen to me. It could happen to Darren. It could happen to his children. It could be in anybody
Yeah.
that goes through some sort of trauma.
Yeah. It could be
And we
somebody
have
you
to,
work with right now.
anybody,
Yeah. We got to have the
and you have,
conversations. And
yeah, and you have to,
go
the
ahead.
signs and stuff like that. You got
Hmm.
to be noticeable, like the heavy makeup, the bruising, the
Yeah.
long sleeve clothes when it's 90 degrees outside.
Yeah. Well, and that you came to Safe House for Women and to give them some love too. My previous job, I helped work on their website. And one of the things that was important for them was the ability for women to feel safe even when they were at the website. And we even built in a thing. So if somebody was there and she was looking at it and somebody walked in the door, she could hit one little button and it'd change it to Google or whatever else, to take
Right.
that. Because it is such a hard place to climb out of when you're in that
Yeah.
situation. So they do make that happen. And I know they did for you and they have for many other women too. So
Yeah.
we
They
appreciate their work.
definitely,
Hmm.
yeah, I am definitely grateful for them, because for me, for the very first time that I shared my story was a domestic violence task force.
Hmm.
And so it was law enforcement, it was counselors, and I shared it. We were at Dexter's Barbecue here in
Mm.
Cape Girardeau. That was the very first time that I started talking and writing my story and
Yeah.
sharing my story.
And let me
And
ask you
just,
this to someone who's watching you who, feels compelled to find a way to share their story. As you talk about it more and more, has it become easier for you to share your story and to share your testimony?
it has. I mean, there will be times when, like, I remember last year, I believe during Advocacy Day, and it was virtual. It wasn't in person. We weren't in Jefferson City. And so that particular time, I was talking to a legislator and I started crying. And so sometimes, and it wasn't because I was sad,
Right.
it was because
Yeah. Emotionally.
I was emotional.
Hmm.
And so I was mad all over again, having gone through this. And then now I'm talking to a legislator and I'm a babbling idiot and I just start crying.
Mm.
So, and then even like, I remember I was one of the speakers at the Capitol when we had our last in person in 2020. And so that was 3 years ago. And I was sharing my story. The microphone wouldn't work. And so then I just started talking and then the microphone started working.
Mm.
So then, there were people there listening and stuff like that. And then even I was doing, I do a lot of press. So I was doing interviews while we were there at the Capitol. And I remember my friend Kristen, we were talking to a legislator and he heard my story and he pulled her aside and was like, Kristen, this is the person that you need that is going to resonate with legislators.
Mm.
And if, hearing her story they're going to resonate with her because this is her story.
Right.
And like I tell people, my story and your story is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all by any means necessary. So what you may say and what I may say is going to be something totally different.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Each time it has gotten easier. Like I've done a lot of radio podcasts. I do a lot with the school radio station. I do a lot with Fawn Riggin. I do a lot with the Missourian. I do a lot with, I was just in the studio yesterday with KFVS 12 live. I've done a lot with them.
Yeah.
I've done in-person interviews with Mike Mahundro.
Yeah.
Different people involved in media. Nathan, who did my article for the Missourian. So I have gotten, I would say, better. And then I've even done CBS. I've done CNN,
So it comes easier as you get through it.
Yeah. It comes easier, but I get emotional. I may be stoic right now, but then I even like in October, they have the Survivor Series for the Southeast Missourian.
Yeah.
So I was a part of that as well.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't have a smile. We had to have a serious face. So it's like, oh my God, I can't do serious. I'm always got a smile on
right?
my face.
Right. Let me get all,
Yeah, let me get all
fire and brimstone face.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of, difficult to have that stoic face. But, and even doing a BIPOC conference in St. Louis, so that was bittersweet for me.
Yeah.
So I've had different opportunities with Everytown and Moms Demand where I can share my story. And, even the Kansas City Star, they've done one on me, so different opportunities have come for this. I'm not using it for my personal gain.
No.
I'm using it to get that
it's
education
to amplify a survivor's voice.
Exactly.
That's
and
it.
I, as a survivor, I am amplifying my voice for others who
and I know
are
you want to
afraid
help
use
others
this.
do that as well. So, we encourage them to reach out to you on social media or to, hit those first of the month meetings and be a part of it. Well, that's our time for today. Leslie, I appreciate you so much hanging out with me for Humans in Tune today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to hearing your voice echoing up and down the streets of Cape, along with those that you bring into the fold. So thanks again. It is another Humans in Tune. We appreciate you tuning in to 93.9 Mike FM on Facebook and via podcast, and catch all the Humans in Tune segments right there on our Facebook page in the video section. For Leslie, I'm Darren. Have a fantastic afternoon. Stay warm and safe. Be nice, humans, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for catching this Humans in Tune conversation with 93.9 Mike FM. Find previous interviews on our Facebook page, or you can listen via our podcast at 93.9mikefm.com.